So this is the first time I've ever given a paper that I've had family, friends, undergraduate advisor, mentors, all in the same room. So I'm a little intimidated, but I know I'm being supported. And I always forget how to use slideshows. Just press slideshow and not the PowerPoint. And then I can just click with the arrows, correct? Yep. Oh. It's big. Okay, here it's small. That's why. So my paper is entitled "I Wish I Was With Them Again: Diasporic Longing in Contemporary Cape Breton Song." This is some work that I've been doing as part of my dissertation, which is on Cape Breton music in the Boston area, and how I conceive of Cape Breton as a diaspora within the United States. I'm happy for any suggestions anybody might have, as this is very much a work in progress and is part of a chapter that, please God, will get defended next year. Music stands at the core of contemporary Cape Breton culture. Adrian Ivakov notes that, quote, "Song and dance have become the new cod and coal for many Gaelic Cape Bretoners. The fiddle music of Cape Breton and its diasporas alike are well documented. However, English language songs are less discussed and analyzed, though they remain an important part of the culture. Edith Folk and Helen Creighton documented Gaelic and English Nova Scotia folk songs in the early and mid-20th century. Chris MacDonald, in his 2011 examination of contemporary Cape Breton singer-songwriters, writes of artists seeking a balance between staying true to tradition while also making oneself marketable. Like fiddling, singing is an important aspect of Cape Breton music, both at home and away. With changes in immigration laws, increasing unemployment levels in the U.S., and the lure of work on the Alberta pipeline, the Cape Breton diaspora, once booming in Boston and other locations, itself is shrinking. The songs discussed may also reflect mourning of this shrinking population size, both in the diaspora and the homeland itself. Many of the lyrics of 20th and 21st century songs provide a textual context for examining, analyzing, and looking into the cultural soul of the community. In this presentation, I discuss and analyze a number of different songs within the canon, noting common themes. I acknowledge the presence of diasporic longing within the songs and propose future areas for research on the topic. First, why diaspora? Diaspora, while it sounds theoretically trite, is ever important because of globalization, immigration, and the continued ease of exposure to other cultures as facilitated by technology and improvements in transit. Kay Coffin-Chalamet, in her 2011 discussion of musical communities, declares that, much like culture in motion, quote, "Community is a term that needs to be approached in action. Music is particularly useful for showcasing this motion and action as sound waves themselves, much like the scents of foods that waft, travel through the air to reach a different destination, one's oral or olfactory senses, respectively. Much like the linguistic shifts surrounding diaspora theory, so too do its components. I use the tenets of diaspora theory presented by William Safran later in this paper to explain how the music is a reflection of diasporic longing. Further, diasporas in Canada have been studied, but extremely little is written about diasporas of Canada. Lucas and Purkayasha, excuse me for any mispronunciation, is one exception. Their remark that, quote, "Canada as home was most often described in terms of family, while home in the U.S. was associated with work, is reflected in the lyrics of the songs presented today, which speak of leaving the island to find work, having had to work in Canada in mines, which have now closed, but which once required backbreaking labor, and whose results and remnants stay with people through health conditions, among other things. Moreover, given the fact that Canadian immigrants often disperse within their new homelands as well, rather than remaining in a cultural or ethnic community, music can serve as a means for connecting to fellow members of the diaspora, particularly the Cape Breton diaspora. While one for years had to go to live events, purchase recordings in a specialty shop, or perform music themselves to hear songs of the Cape Breton tradition, Today, one's culture is available at the click of a mouse, thanks to YouTube, music streaming sources, and other electronic resources. One is now able to e-member, a term I have coined to describe the process of digitally remembering one's culture. One cannot physically take the island with them, but through technology, diasporic longing is both in one's mind and at one's fingertips. Mark Slobin's 1994 article on diaspora, written at the dawn of the widespread use of the internet, foreshadows future events. Quote, "Music is both highly portable and multi-layered. Even before the microchip, music has always been wired into the mobile body. Every musical item is a complex bundle of sonic and kinetic forces that simultaneously order a unique set of independent variables brought together for purposes of entertainment, socialization, and memory. Each individual makes a distinctive selection of such items to form a personal storehouse that both partakes of and separates from the collective pool of resources. Music lives at the margin of the person and the people, so it forms a particularly crucial point of articulation in viewing diasporic life. While the authenticity versus created sentimentality and longing is an important issue in diasporic studies, with some of the songs coming off as forced balladry, many in both the homeland and diaspora alike do indeed connect with these songs. Most notably, members post videos on Facebook as well as Canadian imagery, meaning that they post pictures of the island or post memories, and there's many different Facebook pages posted that say photos to keep the culture alive. This is all a relatively new happening. The trading of media and recordings is nothing new, but the instantaneous means of doing it evolved greatly in the past 10 years, which parallels the decline in attendance at Canadian American diasporic events in the Boston area. One can now hear the music on demand from the comfort of their home. There are even live streams from the homeland itself of the Celtic Colours International Festival, though I'm not quite sure if they're happening this year. It may be noted that I come to this as what Emiko Onuki Tierney calls a, quote, halfie, that is, one who is half part of a culture. My mother, who's here, left Cape Breton at the age of 10 in 1962, and like many in her family, still refers to visiting the island as going down home. In a synchronistic move, she happened to write a song about Cape Breton while I was preparing for this conference, and with her nod of approval at the end, I'll discuss it at the end of today's paper. As Slobin notes, diaspora only came into conversation with ethnomusicology in the 1990s. He, like Rogers Brubaker, notes that the word can become strained and that people can overextend to use it. I acknowledge Slobin's remarks of the term diaspora possibly stretching to its breaking point. However, given the lack of writing on Cape Breton as a community, I feel that consideration as a diaspora, or a community facing the actions of a diaspora, including exile, is important for examination within the scholarly realm of musical study of the island. Further investigation will also place into context critical analysis of Cape Breton's hegemonized Celtic identity. Nuala O'Connor describes Irish dance tunes collected by Captain Francis O'Neill as, quote, musical photographs. This term rings true for music connected to a diaspora, and particularly of Cape Breton, as the majority of contemporary English language songs written about the island reference its beauty, its people, and paint verbal and musical pictures of the island. Place and identity are also frequently discussed in the studies of Irish music. Sally Summer-Smith, she's one of my readers, I better get that right, notes that, quote, the union of landscape, common memory, and traditional music clearly has a lengthy and honored history in Ireland. As Simon Schama suggests, the pulse of a culture is drawn from the elements of geography, common memory, and the creative expressions of its people. Most of the songs discussed today speak to the island's natural beauty, its picturesque shores, its hilly terrain, and so on. Lots of videos, as previously mentioned, exist of Cape Breton scenery put to music. Scenes of the ocean, Brador Lakes, Kelly's Mountain, etc. are juxtaposed with wistful fiddling and lyrics of some of the songs discussed today. The great sadness here is that though many come to enjoy the beauty of the island, the kind spirits of its people, and its concentrated music community, and its beauty is internationally recognized by such publications as Condé Nast and National Geographic, many who have made the island what it is today have long since had to leave to find work elsewhere, and cannot afford to live on the island full-time and make a living. the field of music and tourism and homeland tourism are burgeoning and will be discussed in future versions of this paper. Also, much of the literature on diaspora region themed songs describes a manufactured, crafted approach to an artist's persona via their lyrics that reference Cape Breton culture. Adrian Avakov, mentioned earlier, takes a critical stance of the projected and marketed Celtic identity of Cape Breton Island in his 2005 analysis, noting that the labeling of the island's music as Celtic, quote, provides a means by which middle-class Euro-Americans can hyphenate their identities by grafting on roots from a part of the old world that has become fashionably exotic. Cape Breton can thus serve as a midway point between their mythicized North Atlantic origins and the communities of the Western diaspora. Cape Breton becomes a place where ethnicity almost becomes aboriginality, or at least where the line between the two can become provocatively blurred. While he remarks upon the island's long history of ethnic diversity, which Celtic Colours increasingly recognizes every year, he also notes that song and dance are at the core of the island's culture. Beaton and Muse discuss former Premier Angus L. MacDonald's, quote, seeming to develop a great sense of nostalgia for the island, and that, in large part through his efforts, tourism that marketed, quote, Cape Breton as a traditional but accessible Scottish community supplanted the waning natural resource industries on Cape Breton. I argue that this projected image, critically assessed by many, is not always a purposeful choice. While it is true that a number of the most well-known songs in the Cape Breton songbook, such as the Ballad of Nova Scotia, were explicitly written for a particular cause, image, or advertising campaign, that many a time the songs are an organic creation, a narrative for those experiencing the longing for their beloved homeland. Songwriter Ken Chisholm, speaking about the album produced from the review The Rise and Follies of Cape Breton, a comedic and musical performance event occurring for a number of the years on the island, writes, quote, copies of the album flew out to wherever Cape Bretoners had wandered to find a job that would earn them enough money to return home someday. Everybody has a tale of some late-night phone call from a brother or cousin or high school buddy in Halifax or Toronto or Ghana who had no real reason for calling, except that they had a couple of beers and put on the Follies record, and geez, they just had to call somebody from home while in the background, the stereo could be heard blasting out We Are an Island, a Rock in the Stream. The song to which he refers, by Kenzie McNeil, called The Island, speaks to a united sense of community felt by islanders, the chorus also featuring the lines, We are a people as strong as there's been, the home of our hearts, Cape Breton. With the ever-increasing sense of migration felt by Cape Bretoners, lyrics such as these hold strong meaning to many. The concept of the heart being tied to the island is even reflected in the island's current advertising slogan, Your heart will never leave. Alistair McGillivray, famed songwriter, musician, and father to several of the members of the Cape Breton group The Cottars, writes that he originally wrote Song for the Myra, Nova Scotia's unofficial anthem, which features the title of this paper, I Wish I Was With Them Again, in its chorus, writing it with only Cape Bretoners in mind. However, he says, I've since discovered that that's a universal message involved, even for people who have no idea where the Myra or Marion Bridge are. At your river, you'll find the beauty and music and people to ease your mind. And when you go far away, your river will stay with you in your heart till you can come home again. That's the real message in Song for the Myra, the feeling of home, the feeling of peace. The location of the Myra itself gets bungled in the clip I will later play, yet the imagery remains true. The last line of the song speaks to a return either in spirit or in person, saying, I'm going to be with them again. This line has several levels of interpretation. It can be read as a person returning to Cape Breton to live with and be amongst the old men sung about. Yet, the tone and the slight change of wording from I wish I was to I'm going to be with them again can be interpreted as the subject returning to the Myra at the end of his life, an almost ethereal play on words, especially as the subject does not indicate why he is returning. These songs convey the leaving that is so common that it has become expected. It is understood that, for the most part, in order to succeed in Cape Breton, you often have to leave it, often for Alberta, to work on bustling pipelines, such as at Fort McMurray. The song Farewell to Nova Scotia, collected by Helen Creighton in the 1950s, shows that this trend is nothing new, and research has shown that the song's lyrics, which include such lines as Farewell to Nova Scotia, the sea-bound coast, let your mountains dark and dreary be, are likely adapted from a Scottish sailor song, once again, evidence of diasporic longing. The lyrics of many folk and popular songs convey this economic necessity and its aftermath, as well as the melancholy and wistful longing this move creates. Bound to Alberta is a song featured on the Follies album mentioned earlier, and Heading for Halifax is another popular tune. Once again, recognition of the central role of these songs is evidenced by the placement of several of them on the 1982 album Cape Breton's Greatest Hits. At the time of its release, Song for the Myra was relatively new. However, the titles of other songs and instrumental tunes indicate the hard life had by many and the need to leave. Some examples are Heading for Halifax, Let's Save Our Industry, Remember the Miner, and, they previously mentioned, The Island. The lyrics of Heading for Halifax even mention the sound of the fiddle being a voice of home. I have chosen several different songs, each of which features lyrics that exemplify a tenet of a diaspora using the characteristics used by theorist William Safran. They will be on this PowerPoint for display if you can read them while I discuss the songs. The songs are a narrative for the island's changing, shifting, aging, and decreasing population and the subsequent shifts that have occurred. The title of this conference is Singing Storytellers, and indeed, that is what many Cape Bretoners are. This island is recognized for its powerful storytellers, and singing is a core part of Cape Breton culture. I show some lyrical excerpts here, and then play some pieces to bolster my argument. So you can see some of the characteristics. The ones in the left-hand column were presented by him in 1991, and then he tweaked some of them for another article he did in 2005. So in the first two examples that talk about the ancestors and the collective memory, the Song for the Myra says, "Can you imagine a piece of the universe more fit for princes and kings? I'll trade you 10 of your cities for Marion Bridge and the pleasure it brings." As mentioned earlier, while not directly a song with diasporic leanings, The Island features a chorus that says, "The home of our hearts, Cape Breton." Regarding number 3, Alistair McGillivray's song, "You'll Be Home Again," features the line, "So your newfound friends don't have your Gaelic sense of humor," as well as the lines, "Life at home just can't be beat, but who can make $1? So spend your evening playing Winston Scotty records." Winston Scotty Fitzgerald is recognized as one of the great, if not the greatest, Cape Breton fiddlers. Regarding number 4, Rita McNeil sings in Home I'll Be, "I caress you, O Cape Breton, in my dreams." So obviously that connects to the idea of the ideal homeland. Regarding number 5, once again we connect it with We Are an Island. And with the last two, with 6 and 7, think about the clubs such as the Canadian American Club in Watertown, the Cape Breton Club in Detroit, and the French Club in Watertown, all which have dances and events which celebrate culture. So even though the cultures have dispersed, there still are locations where people can gather. Thus, I argue that Cape Breton is a diaspora, and it maintains a diasporic sensibility even at home. This attitude is clearly reflected in the music, which is appropriate and is a reflection of the culture, where many are forced to live away. In conclusion, Slobin notes that, quote, "Diaspora is here to stay in ethnomusicology, even as it threatens to spiral out of control. It arrived somewhat reluctantly, but has now moved from alien to permanent resident status in our scholarly homeland." In addition, scholars like Tina Ramnarine emphasize that, quote, "Away in the homeland is a newly emerging topic of study." The rise in homeland tourism seems to signal the next theoretical direction. Cultures are now not only studied in their new homeland, but are also discussed in regards to how they can be drawn back to their original location, however many generations removed that may be. I feel that further examination of this idea, the changing approaches to diasporic consciousness as Slobin describes, and the increasing scholarship in homeland tourism, music and tourism, and transnationalism, as well as how these fields fit into scholarship on music and memory, will provide further theoretical views for analyzing and discussing diasporic longing in music. To conclude, I will now play several short clips of the songs mentioned that express this longing. I will also, if there's time, recite a little bit of the song that my mom wrote, who's here in the audience, but said that I could read this instead of her singing it. I look forward to learning the melody one day. So I'll just play some small clips if I have time. I wasn't able to see my time, so I'm not sure if I have. Okay. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but this will just give little. Oh no. I'm going to say no. Yes. This is a security issue. Do you want to continue? It's just nice Cape Breton songs. I'm not going to Anyone? Okay. So I'll just play about a minute of each song.
Farewell to Nova Scotia, the sea's long coast. Let your mountains dark and dreary be. When I am far away on the briny ocean coast, will you ever heave a sigh or a wish for me? The sun was setting in the west, the birds were singing on every tree. All nature seemed to be at rest, but alas, there was no rest for me. Farewell to Nova.
Okay, so that's one of them. Feel free to sing along. One second. PowerPoint has reminded its own today. Excuse me. So the second one was Song for the Myra. There we go. Which, oh, this is the clip I was mentioning. This is an example of something I'm going to discuss in my dissertation about deterritorialization and re-territorialization. That's hard to say. But I really enjoyed this clip because it gives an example of what he was saying, how it could be anyone's river.
This is a particularly beautiful song about a spot over in Newfoundland, which, having been there myself, I found it was very, very like Ireland, except for the prices, of course, it was ridiculous. What do you say? Rock on. Good man.
So I'd like to see the videos and I'll try to fix that, but
Oh, that's in it. That's right. That's in Newfoundland, is it? Good man. Are you from Newfoundland?
so the man talks about, it's a beautiful island in Newfoundland. I've been there, and
Okay.
just, so then he sings Song for the Myra.
Out on the Myra, on warm afternoons, old men go fishing with black line and spoon, and if they catch nothing, they never complain. Oh, I wish I was with them again. As boys in their boats call two girls on the shore,
Just did a remix.
that they dearly adore, and into the evening the courting begins. Oh, I wish I was with them again. Can you imagine a piece of the universe more fit for princes and kings? I'll trade you 10 of your cities for Marion Bridge and the pleasure it brings.
The third song I actually didn't get to mention in the paper, so I'll just play a little bit of it. But this is to explain how contemporary music is still being written that is about leaving the island. Some of those songs are from the 70s and 80s, and this is a fairly recent song.
If I can't take the isle with me, I'd rather be bound than be lost. Here's to those who have turned and long to return to the people so close to their hearts. To the people of Cape Breton, their story has yet to be told. They labored in fear, through sweat and through tears. The ocean feels still and cold.
And for my very last example, okay to read? Yes. So the song was written about 2 weeks ago about Cape Breton, and my mom shared it with me, and I thought it was very beautiful to show how People are still feeling that longing. I just close my eyes and what do I see? Roots that run deep like a solid oak tree. The wild blue Atlantic where the salmon swim free. Cape Breton is waiting for me. Come back, come back, come back by air, land, or sea. Come back, come back, Cape Breton is calling to me. Some left the island because they wanted to roam. Others had wandered to work far from home. Whatever your reason, and plenty there'll be, come visit Cape Breton with me. Sing songs round a fire every night in Benyon. The fiddle tunes playing right into the dawn. Wrap up in your tartan, 'cause there's a breeze from the sea. It's summer in good old CB. Take a drive on the trail on a clear summer day, sunny day. Go visit the fortress and your friends in Glace Bay. Share old family tales and a fresh pot of tea. Oh, there's no place that I'd rather be. So store up the memories. We know we must go to our homes far from here and the lives that we know, but we'll always be welcomed. Over the causeway you see, the pipes will play us back to CB. Thank you very much.